This morning, who will become the next Speaker of the House? Dade Phelan's stunning announcement, unable to get support, now leaves a power vacuum in the legislature. We'll talk to a Republican member about how the politics in that chamber will now likely change. Plus, the soaring cost of homeowners insurance. Does California have the solution? State Rep Briscoe Cain with us from Houston. Democrats elected Gene Wu to lead their caucus in the state house. But what does his style suggest about their approach to the next session? Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick named something new that he wants lawmakers to ban, assigning it highest priority, just behind the budget and school choice. Congressman Michael Burgess retiring after more than 2 decades in D.C. His exit interview on what he is most proud of. And do you ever just want to escape politics? A Texas man tired of it all has embarked on a 3.5-year cruise. A preview of our podcast with Joe Rhodes.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning. I'm Jason Whiteley. We'll get to the Phelan news in just a moment. First, some of the headlines, though, you might have missed. We will likely know this week who the next city manager will be for the city of Dallas. 4 finalists to be narrowed down on Thursday. Among them, Kimberly Tolbert, the interim city manager right now. William Johnson, an assistant city manager in Fort Worth, also up for the job, along with 2 others from Michigan and Georgia. Thursday, though, a committee is going to select finalists. Council wants to have a new city manager in place, though, by February the 10th. New questions right now around the Texas judge at the center of Robert Robertson's death row case. Judge Deborah Oaks Evans recused herself from his case. She did not say why. Remember, this is the one that Texas lawmakers stopped his execution on recently. Judge Evans denied some of his appeals years ago. Then she retired from the job. But the Texas Tribune reports that she arranged to get back on Robertson's case this year. Her departure, though, now raises new questions about what will happen next. And an update to a bill in Congress that started with a teenage girl in North Texas. One of her classmates used AI to make a fake image of her without her wearing any clothes. Her family could not get social media sites to remove the images. Senator Ted Cruz introduced a bill over the summer to require sites to remove those kinds of images anytime a victim requests it. Well, the bipartisan Take It Down Act has just passed the Senate. It now moves on to the House. Let's start this morning, though, with the bombshell news about Dade Phelan dropping out of the speaker's race. He said, out of deep respect for this institution and its members, and after careful consideration and private consultation with colleagues, I have made the difficult decision to withdraw from the race for Speaker of the Texas House. Now, that leaves a power vacuum in the legislature. The question now, who will replace Phelan, and what will change in that chamber politically? Our first guest, State Rep Brian Harrison, a Republican from Midlothian who was among the first last year to call on Phelan to give up the gavel. Representative Harrison, welcome to the program here. Let's start wide. How pivotal is this moment, this power vacuum that Dade Phelan's announcement has left in the legislature?
Well, it shows how effective what started out as a tiny number of us conservatives in the Texas House can be if we are loud, if we are vocal, if we are willing to put the interests of the voters who sent us there ahead of the opportunity for popularity in the Austin Swamp. Jason, I was the first member of the Texas legislature in either chamber that had the courage to publicly go out and say, Dade Phelan is bad for Texas. He needs to step down. And by the way, I did that when it was not popular to do that, okay? I did that knowing full well the consequences that were going to befall me. But the future for my 4 kids who were 10 years old and under mattered way more to me than a bunch of liberal, big government Republicans in Austin, what they thought about me or how they were going to try to, enact some kind of punishment on me. Liberty mattered too much. So it shows the power of what a small number of vocal conservatives can do, working arm in arm with grassroots activists across the state of Texas. It's a huge development. You can't understate how big it is. So we win the battle, but I do caution people, the war is still to come. We have got to make sure that somebody who is beholden to the Austin Swamp never again wields power in the Texas House of Representatives.
With Phelan out, though, does this mean school vouchers have an easier path?
It depends on who replaces him, because this is what I want people to watch out for. While I am Celebrating the victory of Dade Phelan stepping down, I want to caution people that it could well be Dade Phelan's own team, own liberal team, that is orchestrating him stepping down so they can swap somebody in who's every bit as liberal, every bit as beholden to the swamp as he was. And this is going to be hard for some conservatives to understand what I'm about to say here. Dade Phelan was not the central problem in the Austin swamp. He was just the most visible manifestation of it. But the status quo that led us to people like Dade Phelan, the voters, by the way, overwhelmingly rejected this year at the ballot box in Texas and all across America. That swamp, we've got to make sure that nobody who has the speaker's gavel is beholden to that same liberal swamp again. And there is a massive effort underway right now, as I'm talking to you, by Dade Phelan's own team to put in somebody who is just as liberal or even potentially more liberal than Dade Phelan to go cut a deal with the Democrats, grab a few liberal Republicans, and continue selling out the voters of Texas and letting Democrats control the people's house in our state's capital. And that's what I'm working every minute between now and January to make sure does not happen.
Representative, you said last session was the most liberal in the history of the Texas House. A lot of people thinks that's crazy, though. What besides school choice is a Republican priority that did not get passed last session?
Well, it's objectively true. Never in the history of the Texas House has government power been wielded in such a reckless and irresponsible and destructive fashion that threatens to undermine the integrity of the state of Texas going forward as the liberal leadership of the Texas House that impeached Ken Paxton with less due process and less evidence than third world kangaroo courts. Nothing like that has ever happened in the history of the Texas House. And then you add to that the most liberal, bloated, reckless, dangerous, big government budget busting tax hiking budget in the history of the state that grew government over 25% from one session to the next. We did, instead of putting Texas on a path to eliminate property taxes last session, we put the state of Texas on a track to double government in 7 years. This is not my opinion. Anybody who understands economics or basic math, last session was the most liberal session objectively in the history of the Texas House, and we have got to reform that chamber and make it Republican again.
Representative, good to see you again. I always appreciate the time.
Always great to be with you, Jason.
All right, a lot to talk about here. Let's bring in the round table to talk about this. Bud Kennedy is here from the Star-Telegram in Fort Worth. I am Mitra with us from Austin at the Texas Tribune. Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. I would have questions right here, Bud, but I'm just going to let you start to put this in context for us.
Well, I think that the decision day for Dade Phelan was November 16th a year ago. That was the day that the House was allowed to vote on whether to include school vouchers in the school funding bill. He allowed that bill to come to the floor. The House voted it down. 21 Republicans voted to remove school vouchers from school funding. Almost all of those 21 Republicans are gone now, either retirement or defeated. But that was the day. I think he wanted to show that the House would not vote for vouchers, but that was the day that the opposition rose against him.
And that's just one of the things that Republicans had a problem with Phelan on. The Democratic committee chairs is another. And of course, the impeachment of Ken Paxton, they were just furious about that.
Yeah, these were contentious issues and ultimately spelled a lot of division. And Ken Paxton's impeachment was at the top of the list in terms of kind of dividing the caucus in terms of how that was handled, and said Dade Phelan was very clearly, back that impeachment process. And so between that, there was a very contentious property tax debate that, will continue into this session too, that really pitted Dade Phelan and Dan Patrick against each other. And, what's going to happen next with this speaker's race too is going to be issues over Democratic chairs of committees, who's going to get full Republican caucus support. Those are things that are still kind of being ironed out right now.
So Bernadine, does the Texas House become more conservative all of a sudden?
Oh, absolutely, but it's not all of a sudden. It's been moving that way the entire session, last session, but what's going to be more interesting is how much power the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is going to have. Because whether or not he's in that chamber, he wanted Phelan gone, and he is gone. So we're going to see, and I definitely don't think that you're going to have any Democrats in control, because that was one of the sticklers in the whole debate with Phelan. But it's going to be an interesting.
Bud, you had a final thought on that?
As we've said twice in the last 3 sessions now, when there's a new speaker, Dan Patrick is always going to be the one in charge. It takes a long time for a new speaker to get settled in. So this is going to be an incoming process, and Dan's going to have a lot of control.
All
Lot
right,
of
sounds good.
power.
A lot more ahead, including this. When we come back this morning, the soaring cost of homeowners insurance here in Texas. Could California have the solution for us? State Rep Briscoe Cain with us from Houston. And politics looks different when you are at sea. A Texas man set sail on a 3.5-year cruise to escape it all. A preview of this week's podcast when Inside Texas Politics returns. Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. Make Texas affordable again. That's what many people are telling lawmakers right now before those lawmakers return to Austin next month. The latest problem likely came in your mailbox, your homeowner's insurance bill. Rates here in Texas are rising faster than anywhere else in the country. But will the legislature address it when they return? Republican State Rep Briscoe Cain is on the Texas House Insurance Committee and says constituents have given him an earful on this. Representative Cain, welcome back to the program here. Is there any talk at all on how lawmakers should address these ever-rising insurance rates here in the state?
Well, I'm not sure about how we can address it, but I can certainly tell you and the people of Texas that we've heard your voices, right? We've heard your concerns. And of course, we also pay homeowner insurance rates ourselves and have seen those effects. And I know there's this myth out there that we're all wealthy, but some of us just average folks trying to make it by as well. So, I fully empathize with it. It is troubling. We're seeing it nationally, but what are the answers? I'm not sure. And that's something that the legislature is going to have to study it. We know other states are also looking at this, and we can look to them and see whether they're getting it right or not. What I do know is there's some concerns about, of course, covering things have gotten more expensive, right? Due to inflation. That's there. Of course, we've had more storms or recent storms and those issues, but is government the solution or the problem, right? We have a supply problem as well. I believe Progressive is one of the ones that have announced they're no longer to be covering home insurance policies in Texas, right? And so when fewer are then in the marketplace, that also is a cost thing. And is there a way we can get out of the way to encourage more people, right, to provide that product and hopefully raise it or lower the cost for Texans? But I don't have the solution, but we certainly do know there's a problem and it's affecting everybody, and we got to deal with it.
And you said that you've heard constituents, talking to you. What are they telling you, especially along the Gulf Coast there?
Yeah, well, it's similar to the things we hear about our property tax rates, that it's going to drive them out of their homes. Right now, they're already making those cost cuts in order to just afford their groceries and to pay their property tax bill, and now they're be hitting with this insurance rate. And so, it is in tight spots. And of course, when people get put in those spots, the emotions rise, and it starts to break down other issues in society. And so the Texas legislature must act, and I'm glad we're going to be starting to do that in January.
Is this something you think that might be addressed this session, or like property taxes, is this going to take a few sessions to actually deal with and lower people's insurance bills?
I'm not sure how we lower them, right? Things have gotten more expensive as well. The cost of replacing things have gotten more expensive. And so we need to look at whether we can allow people to offer plans that only maybe replace certain things. There's some great plans out there for homeowners insurance, right? There's certain of cash replacement versus value replacement. We have to look into it and see how we can allow people to get different level plans, or how we can allow more people to even come into the marketplace, right? So if supply remains what it is right now, and maybe there's some regulations we got to look at cutting so that we can get people into Texas to provide that product to the homeowners, right? Certainly we can't force them to lower it, or we will force more out of the market. So we have to be creative, probably hold a lot of hearings, and use our ears a whole lot more than our mouths. Maybe something I should do better with.
The way it stands now, insurance companies in Texas only have to notify the Texas Department of Insurance before they raise their rates and send those bills along to you and I. Other states like California, regulated markets where they have to actually get permission to raise the rates. Is that something you think Texas should consider?
Well, there's a reason Californians are moving to Texas. So look, we should look at it, considering it as far as studying the policy to see whether it would work here or not. But of course, I'm a little suspicious when you have something like that. There's a reason businesses are leaving that state for this one. There's a reason homeowner affordability in California is as high as it is. And it could be a reason like that. So look, everything needs to be on the table. I shouldn't even prejudge it. We should listen. Of course, I got a few hunches. I tend to learn which policies, and usually government ends up messing things up. But we've got to do something for sure.
Representative, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
God bless, Jason. Let's get this fixed for Texans.
In just a few weeks, a long-serving Republican congressman from North Texas is going to retire. Michael Burgess was first elected in 2002 to represent the western side of the Metroplex. He sat down with us for an exit interview about several of his proudest accomplishments over 2 decades in D.C.
Water in this area is incredibly important. So, your question was, what are the things that are you're most proud of? The things that endure after. It's not the bill signing. It's not when the bill goes to the federal agency to be interpreted. But how has it impacted the lives of the people that you represented? So, no, I didn't get a new lake authorized and built, but I kept you from losing the old one, which was actually pretty important. We did a lot of work on the dam with operations and maintenance on the dam and fixing the 3 seepage areas that were occurring, putting the new spillway in. All of that is, that sort of, the permanence to that sort of infrastructure is to me what's important, because it's going to stay on much longer than people remember my tenure here. We got a big VA clinic built in Fort Worth, one of the biggest ones in the country. Got that up and running in 5 years' time, which was absolutely incredible when you think of the way the VA normally moves at a slower than glacial pace. And even the VA clinic up in Denton, which had been promised for years, was going to be improved. I no longer have Denton in the district, but I did do the walkthrough of the new clinic earlier this year. And they finally have done a great job on getting those facilities up to date. And probably the biggest issue there is that veterans no longer have to walk across a very busy street. That's gonna make a difference in people's lives long after I'm gone.
Congressman Michael Burgess there. It's almost time to start considering New Year's resolutions, but no one is likely going to match what a Fort Worth man decided to do. He cleared his plate for 2025 and 2026 and 2027. He's taking a 3.5-year cruise. Joe Rhodes is a retired journalist. He set sail on a boat called the Odyssey this year. It bills itself as the world's first residential cruise ship. Is it working, though? Did he really disconnect from everything? Something we asked him when he flew back briefly to vote in last month's election.
I think it's incredibly helpful not to just be in the middle of it all the time, because the first Trump administration, I felt like I needed to get under the covers on a daily basis. I don't think I'll have to spend as much time under the covers, because I'm a selfish person like everybody else, and it won't be affecting me directly.
Mm-hmm. Joe says there are Republicans and Democrats on board with him there. Some are seniors, others are younger folks who work remotely, but he's one of the funniest guests we've ever had. This episode of Y'all-ticks out right now wherever you get your podcasts. The roundtable is ready when we come back here in just a moment on Inside Texas Politics. All right, time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Back with us, Bud, Ian, and Bernadine. We talked about Speaker Phelan just a moment ago. Let's talk about who the Democrats have now elected as their caucus chair. Gene Wu, Democrat from Houston. He is outspoken, to say the least. He's been a member, not a member, but he's been appeared on this program a number of times. What kind of message does this send, Bud?
Well, this is a more aggressive leader for the Democrats. This is someone who's more outspoken. Courtroom prosecutor who came to the legislature, takes to social media all the time to make his case. I think the Democrats have seen they're not going to have any say-so on the floor of the House, so they might as well scream to the Texas people.
Well, what does it say that Gene Wu defeated the incumbent Trey Martinez Fisher, Ian?
I mean, it says that, the Democrats are trying to take a different tact forward. They're trying to kind of, project a new face. And so, no one will ever accuse Trey Martinez Fisher of being a shrinking violet, but certainly Gene Wu just kind of presents a new kind of front in terms of the opposition that the Democrats are going to project. So still a challenge, as Bud noted, but in terms of the numbers, but certainly a different face trying to forge a different path forward.
Yeah, tell us about that, Bernadine, because at the end of the day, TMF is a fighter. Gene Wu is definitely a fighter as well. Why the change in leadership there, do you think?
Well, I think the change is the important word here. They just want change. And I think that anyone who had been in leadership, it appears as if they just didn't want them as the face of their party. And the November election, it was just so devastating to them that the entire Democratic Party just wants to start new. And they're starting with someone who they vision as someone who will fight, because they're not going to have any power, just power. They'll probably team up with some Republicans to get things done. But they're showing that we want a leader who appears as if they will fight.
They too are blowing things up. Bud, let's talk about Dan Patrick's latest priority here. Banning THC. It's already illegal in the state, but small traces were in some hemp products.
Right. Right now you can have hemp products, which has just blown up into this industry where you have hemp edibles, you have hemp consumables, you have hemp oil. A lot of it is much stronger than what is supposed to be allowed. You can buy things in Texas that are as effective as anything you buy in California or Colorado. So Dan wants to put a stop to it all. He did make clear he's not talking about the compassionate use THC with a prescription, but he wants to actually stop all these stores, all these shops, all the selling of THC products.
And he assigned this Senate Bill number 3, which the lower the bill number, the higher the priority. So a good chance this will get done, Ian.
It's a good chance, and certainly, but there will still be a very clear debate too. And obviously, whether it's the industry leaders are raising concerns about whether there's any blanket type of legislation will do irreparable harm. So there are going to be a lot of back and forth here too. And when it's going to be framed in an agricultural frame lens of debate, that may lead to some areas of potential compromise.
Yeah, indeed. So Bernadine, final word on this.
Well, agriculture, because Sid Miller came out and said, wait a minute, we're not all on this issue that you're trying to stop. So he's going to have pushback from his own party. Yeah. And I don't think it's going to be as easy as Dan Patrick thinks it's going to be.
Yeah, we shall see. Bud, you think at the end of the day?
Maybe they'll find a way to tax it.
Yeah, well, that could be it. Guys, we appreciate it as always. Ian, thanks a lot as well from Austin. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next Sunday to take you inside Texas politics, and we hope to see you then. Take care.